The first bullfight I ever went to, I expected to be horrified and perhaps sickened by what I had been told would happen to the horses. Everything I had read about the bull ring insisted on that point. Most people who wrote of it condemned bullfighting outright as a stupid, brutal business, but even those that spoke well of it as an exhibition of skill and as a spectacle deplored the use of the horses and were apologetic about the whole thing. The killing of the horses in the ring was considered indefensible. I suppose from a modern moral point of view, that is, a Christian point of view, the whole bullfight is indefensible. Well, there is certainly much cruelty. There is always danger, either sought or unlooked for. And there is always death. And I should not try to defend it now, only to tell honestly the things I have found true about it. To do this, I must be altogether frank, or try to be. And if those who read this decide with disgust that it is written by someone who lacks there the reader's fineness of feeling, I can only plead that this may be the case. But whoever reads this can only truly make such a judgment when he or she has seen the things that are spoken of and knows truly what their reactions to them would be. I once remember Gertrude Stein talking of bullfights, spoke of her admiration for Joselito, and showed me some pictures of him in the ring and of herself and Alice Toklas sitting in the first row of the wooden barreras at the bull ring at Valencia, with Joselito and his brother El Gallo below. And I had just come from the Near East, where the Greeks broke the legs of their baggage and transport animals and drove them and shoved them off the quay into the shallow water when they abandoned the city of Smyrna. And I remembered saying that I did not like the bullfights because of the poor horses. I was trying to write then, and I found the greatest difficulty, aside from knowing truly what you really felt rather than what you were supposed to feel and had been taught to feel, was to put down what really happened in action, what the actual things were, which produced the emotion that you experienced. In writing for a newspaper, you told what happened, and with one trick or another, you communicated the emotion aided by the element of timeliness, which gives a certain emotion to any account of something that has happened on that day. But the real thing, the sequence of motion and fact which made the emotion and which would be as valid in a year or in 10 years, or with luck, if you stated it purely enough, always was beyond me. And I was working very hard to try to get it. The only place where you could see life and death, i.e., violent death, now that the wars were over, was in the bull ring. And I wanted very much to go to Spain where I could study it. I was trying to learn to write, commencing with the simplest things, and one of the simplest things of all, and the most fundamental, is violent death. It has none of the complications of death by disease or so-called natural death, or the death of a friend or someone you have loved or have hated, but it is death nevertheless, one of the subjects that a man may write of. I had read many books in which, when the author tried to convey it, he only produced a blur. And I decided that this was because either the author had never seen it, or at the moment of it, he had physically or mentally shut his eyes, as one might do if he saw a child that he could not possibly reach or aid about to be struck by a train. In such a case, I suppose he would probably be justified in shutting his eyes, as the mere fact of the child being about to be struck by the train was all that he could convey. The actual striking would be, well, an anticlimax, so that the moment before the striking might be as far as he could represent. But in the case of an execution by a firing squad or a hanging, this is not true. And if these very simple things were to be made permanent, say as Goya tried to make them in Los Desastros de la Guerra, it could not be done without any shutting of the eyes. I had seen certain things, certain simple things of this sort that I remembered. But through taking part in them, or in other cases, having to write of them immediately after, and consequently noticing the things I needed for instant recording. I had never been able to study them as a man might, for instance, study the death of his father or the hanging of someone, say, that he did not know, and would not have to write of immediately after for the first edition of an afternoon newspaper. So I went to Spain to see bullfights and to try to write about them for myself.